Dr. Phil stood frozen behind his desk, staring at the open briefcase as if he'd seen a ghost. For the first time in his 30-year career, the man who had handled every crisis imaginable was speechless. The studio fell into a silence so profound you could hear the camera equipment humming. What was inside that black case marked "Secret" had just changed everything. "Stop the cameras," Dr. Phil said quietly, his voice barely audible. Then louder, with authority. "I said stop the cameras. Now." The red recording lights flickered off one by one. 300 audience members sat motionless, unsure whether they were witnessing television history or something that should never be broadcast. The guest, a 34-year-old woman named Sarah, kept her trembling hands on the open case, tears streaming down her face. But to understand how we got to this moment, we need to go back to the beginning of what started as a routine family reunion show. 2 hours earlier, the Dr. Phil's stage was buzzing with its usual pre-show energy. Sarah Mitchell had flown in from Portland with what she described to producers as evidence that would reunite my family and expose a 20-year lie. She clutched a black briefcase with a combination lock, marked with a single word in white letters, "Secret." The show was supposed to be simple. Sarah claimed her sister Lisa had been lying about their father's death for 2 decades. Lisa maintained their father died in a car accident when they were teenagers. Sarah believed something far more sinister had happened. The family had been torn apart by this disagreement, with most relatives siding with Lisa's version of events. Dr. Phil had seen family disputes before. What made this case intriguing was Sarah's insistence that she had proof she kept locked in that mysterious briefcase. She refused to show it to producers, saying it was too sensitive for anyone but Dr. Phil and her sister to see first. "I've been carrying this burden for 20 years, Sarah had told the pre-interview team. "My sister convinced everyone I was delusional, that grief made me imagine things. But I wasn't imagining anything. And I have evidence to prove it." Lisa, now 36, had agreed to appear on the show reluctantly. A successful real estate agent from Denver, she felt confident that Dr. Phil would see through what she called her sister's conspiracy theories and attention-seeking behavior. She had brought her own evidence, death certificates, newspaper clippings, and witness statements from the accident. Dr. Phil paused mid-sentence. The studio went completely silent. The show began like any other reunion episode. Dr. Phil introduced the sisters, outlining their 20-year dispute. Lisa spoke first, calmly recounting the night their father died. She was 17, Sarah was 15. Their father, Robert Mitchell, had been driving home from work during a thunderstorm. His car skidded off a wet road and hit a tree. He died instantly. Sarah was traumatized. Lisa explained to Dr. Phil and the audience. She couldn't accept that Daddy was really gone. She started making up stories about seeing him alive, about mysterious phone calls. It broke our mother's heart. Eventually, Sarah's behavior became so disruptive that she was asked to stay away from family gatherings. Sarah listened quietly, the black briefcase at her feet. When Dr. Phil asked for her response, she stood up slowly and placed the case on the coffee table between them. "Lisa's been telling that story for so long, I think she actually believes it," Sarah said. "But I have something that will prove everything she just said is a lie." She began entering the combination on the lock. July 15, 2004, the date their father supposedly died. "Sarah, honey, please don't do this again," Lisa pleaded. "This is exactly the kind of behavior that—" "No," Sarah interrupted, her voice growing stronger. "I'm done being called crazy. I'm done watching our family celebrate Daddy's birthday every year while pretending he's dead. I'm done protecting everyone from the truth." The lock clicked open. Dr. Phil leaned forward, his expression shifting from professional curiosity to genuine concern. "Sarah, before you open that case, I need you to understand that whatever's inside there, we're going to deal with it together. But if this contains something that could hurt your family or put anyone in danger—" "It contains the truth," Sarah said simply. "And yes, it's going to hurt. But lies hurt worse. She lifted the lid. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. Inside the briefcase were dozens of photographs, handwritten letters, and what appeared to be official documents. But it was the photograph on top that made Dr. Phil's breath catch in his throat. It showed a man who looked exactly like Robert Mitchell, standing next to Sarah, both smiling at the camera. The timestamp read, December 25, 2010. 6 years after Robert Mitchell was supposed to be dead. That's our father, Sarah said, her voice breaking. This was taken at his apartment in Phoenix. He didn't die in any car accident, Dr. Phil. He faked his death to escape mounting gambling debts and criminal charges. And my sister knew about it all along. The studio erupted. Lisa jumped to her feet, screaming, "That's impossible!" while audience members gasped and began talking among themselves. Dr. Phil raised his hand for silence, but his eyes never left the photograph. Off camera, Dr. Phil made a choice no producer expected. "Lisa, sit down," Dr. Phil commanded. "Sarah, I need you to hand me that photograph." He studied it carefully, then looked at the other contents of the case. There were birthday cards signed, "Love, Dad," with postmarks from Arizona spanning multiple years. Bank withdrawal slips showing someone had been sending money orders to a Phoenix address. And most damning of all, a handwritten letter from Robert Mitchell to Lisa, dated just 3 years ago. "My dear Lisa, Dr. Phil read aloud. "I know this situation has been difficult for you, but Sarah is getting closer to the truth. We may need to consider telling her soon. The guilt is eating me alive, and I can see what this is doing to our family. Your father, Robert." Lisa collapsed back into her chair, her face pale. I can explain. You can explain how you've let your sister be treated like she was mentally ill for 20 years? Dr. Phil's voice was controlled, but there was steel underneath. You can explain how you've kept a daughter separated from her living father? You don't understand, Lisa whispered. He was in so much trouble. There were people looking for him, dangerous people. If anyone found out he was alive. So you chose to sacrifice your sister's sanity and your family's unity to protect a lie? Dr. Phil walked around the coffee table and knelt down in front of Lisa, a move his producers had never seen him make in 3 decades of television. Lisa, look at me, he said gently. What you did because you were scared and you were 17 years old. But you're not 17 anymore. And your sister has been living in hell for 20 years because of this secret. He turned to Sarah. And you, young lady, have been carrying a burden that was never yours to carry. You knew the truth, but you let others convince you that you were wrong about your own reality. But what happened next is something no one in the room, or watching at home, saw coming. Dr. Phil stood up and walked to the edge of the stage, addressing the production team directly. Get me a phone, he called out. And clear my schedule for the rest of the week. Dr. Phil, what are you doing? Sarah asked. I'm going to call your father, he said simply. And then I'm going to arrange for you to see him. Today. The audience erupted in applause, but Dr. Phil wasn't finished. He returned to the sisters, pulling a business card from his jacket pocket. Lisa, you're going to come with us to Phoenix. And you're going to look your father in the eye and tell him that his daughter Sarah never stopped believing in him, even when everyone else called her crazy. And then you're going to apologize to your sister for 20 years of gaslighting. He handed the card to Sarah. This is the number for my personal trauma counselor. What you've been through. Being told your reality wasn't real, that's a form of psychological abuse. You're going to need help processing this, and I'm going to make sure you get it. Dr. Phil then did something unprecedented. He walked into the audience, microphone still in hand, and began speaking directly to the cameras. If you're watching this at home, and you've ever been told that your truth isn't real, or that your memories can't be trusted, I want you to know something. Your reality matters. Your instincts matter. And sometimes the people who love us most are the people who hurt us most by trying to protect us from difficult truths. He looked back at Sarah, who was now holding the photograph of her father with tears streaming down her face. "Sarah, you spent 20 years being told you were wrong. But you never stopped fighting for the truth. That takes courage that most people never have to find." Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. 3 days later, Dr. Phil flew to Phoenix with both sisters. They met their father at a small coffee shop near his apartment. Robert Mitchell, now 67 and graying, wept when he saw Sarah for the first time in 20 years. "I've thought about you every single day," he told her. "Lisa showed me pictures, sent me updates, but I never thought I'd see you again. I'm so sorry for what this did to you, sweetheart." The reunion was emotional and complex. Robert explained how gambling debts to dangerous people had forced him to fake his death. He'd been working construction jobs under an assumed name, living in a tiny apartment, sending what money he could to Lisa to help support their mother. Lisa had been protecting not just her father, but the entire family from potential violence. "I made Lisa promise never to tell," Robert admitted. "I thought I was protecting everyone. I didn't realize I was destroying my daughter's life in the process." Dr. Phil sat with the family for hours, helping them process 20 years of separation and misunderstanding. He arranged for Robert to speak with law enforcement about his situation. Surprisingly, the statute of limitations had expired on most of his debts, and the people who had been hunting him were either dead or in prison. "Sometimes the dangers we run from become smaller with time," Dr. Phil told them. "But the damage we do to our families by running becomes bigger." The reunion was filmed but never broadcast. Dr. Phil made the decision that some moments were too private, too sacred for television. Instead, he arranged for the family to spend a week together in Arizona, with professional counselors to help them navigate the complex emotions of reunion and forgiveness. 6 months later, Sarah appeared on Dr. Phil again, this time for a follow-up show. She looked transformed. The haunted expression was gone, replaced by a peaceful confidence. She had reconciled with her extended family, many of whom apologized for not believing her. "The hardest part wasn't being separated from my father," Sarah told Dr. Phil during the follow-up. "It was being told that my reality wasn't real. That my memories were false. That nearly broke me completely." Lisa also returned, visibly emotional as she addressed the audience directly. "I want every person watching to understand something. When you gaslight someone, when you tell them their truth isn't real, you don't just hurt them in that moment. You hurt them for years. I stole my sister's confidence in her own mind, and I'll spend the rest of my life making up for that." Dr. Phil used their story in his training seminars for therapists and counselors. "This case taught me that sometimes the most therapeutic thing you can do is validate someone's reality," he often says. Sarah didn't need medication or years of therapy. She needed someone to believe her truth. Sarah kept that black briefcase. But now, instead of carrying evidence of lies, it holds new photographs, pictures of holidays with her father, letters they exchange regularly, and a handwritten note from Lisa that simply says, "I'm sorry, and I love you." Robert eventually moved back to Oregon, where he found legitimate work and was able to rebuild relationships with his grandchildren. The family now celebrates 2 dates each year. July 15th, the day Robert was supposed to have died, which they call Truth Day, and the day they reunited in Phoenix. The impact of Sarah's story extended far beyond her family. Dr. Phil received thousands of emails from viewers who had similar experiences of being gaslit by loved ones. Many shared stories of being told their memories were false, their instincts wrong, their reality invalid. The episode sparked a national conversation about psychological abuse and the importance of believing survivors. Dr. Phil established a special support group for people who had experienced long-term gaslighting. Sarah's courage to keep fighting for her truth, even when everyone told her she was wrong, inspired countless others to speak up about their own experiences, he noted during a follow-up special. The show also led to policy changes at several mental health facilities. Sarah's case demonstrated how easily genuine trauma responses could be misinterpreted as delusions when the full context wasn't known. Her story became a teaching tool for psychology students across the country. Lisa became an advocate for honesty in families, speaking at conferences about the unintended consequences of keeping protective secrets. "I thought I was shielding my sister from pain," she often says. "Instead, I was causing her a different kind of agony that was far worse than the truth would have been." Sarah wrote a book about her experience called The Briefcase of Truth, which became a bestseller and helped establish her as a speaker on resilience and self-advocacy. She donated a portion of the proceeds to organizations that support people recovering from psychological manipulation. Dr. Phil often reflects on that day as one of the most profound in his career. Not because of the dramatic revelation, but because it reminded him why he does this work, to help people find their truth, even when that truth has been buried under years of well-intentioned lies. The briefcase marked "Secret" now sits in Sarah's living room, unlocked and open. Because sometimes the most powerful secrets are the ones we stop keeping.